Hello, my dears, and welcome to another episode of Keeping Kith. And this week we are keeping Kith with storms. And with chickens. Once again, it is so windy. This is a theme, not just of this podcast, but of life in Western South Dakota. It's so windy that if I was standing outside, I don't think you would be able to hear me because the microphone would only be picking up the sound of the wind. So we are instead this is actually not the chicken coop, it's the garden shed, but when it's really cold and windy, I sometimes feed the chickens in here because it gives them a chance. There's an open door that is south facing, so they can kind of get a little sunlight and be someplace different and but also be out of the wind. So yes, if you are watching, you are seeing them. If you are just listening, you can hear their little voices as they're eating. There's actually we have this is only two of our chickens. These are the brave two who made it from the coop to the shed. They must be the hardiest. So yes, we last night had a blizzard, and today it is no longer snowing, but it is still very, very cold and very high winds. So out here we call these like ground blizzards, where it's not falling from the sky, but it still isn't certainly isn't nice weather to be moving around in, because the snow blowing around can decrease visibility, and obviously it's just really cold and not that pleasant. Now, you will note it's the middle of March and it's going to be the Spring Equinox quite soon. But if you are a regular reader of my column, then you have already heard me describe the fact that it is not, and now I guess we get to keep Kith with my kids. Oh, maybe not. I thought I heard my son there for a minute, but he's just walking past. He and his dad are actually going to check heifers, there they go, which is another sort of spring activity on the ranch. Heifers is the word that we use to describe an adult female bovine who has not yet had a baby. It's also the word just to describe a female bovine. And I say that as opposed to just saying a cow, because a cow, this is all stuff that I had to learn after I moved here and moved on a ranch. A cow is the word to describe a female bovine who has already had a calf. So not all female bovines are cows. Anyway, so if you've ever heard the ranch lingo of going to check the heifers, that is what we do when we are checking the mothers to be who have not yet had calves, and that's much like with humans. They are the ones that are most likely to have a rough time because they've never done it before. So if they're going to have trouble, or just sometimes they literally will be just not sure what happened and they won't always bond right away with their calf. So sometimes they need a little extra help. So whereas most of our herd is out kind of able to kind of calve on their own out in the pasture, and we'll just kind of do checks on them that are a little more low key. The heifers we keep closer in, and usually there's a barn nearby, and sometimes we even put them in the barn if the weather's bad like it is right now, so that they can just get the extra care they might need and that their babies might need if they do encounter difficulties. So unfortunately, when you do have bad weather like this, that does kind of significantly increase the likelihood that things will go wrong, or that there will be a calf that needs extra help. So checking heifers is something that you do around the clock anyway, but especially when the weather is like this. That's pretty much all you do is go and keep checking, because again, much like with humans, you don't know. You can kind of have an idea when somebody might be close, but you don't know when the baby will actually be born. So it just requires a lot of vigilance. So checking heifers is actually a really good segue to what I want to talk about, which is keeping kith with storms. And again, if you've been following along, part of what the concept behind this idea of keeping kith is a radical form of neighboring that includes our other than human neighbors. And in this case, again, we've got my chickens who we get to hang out here together. The heifers who my son and husband are going to check on. But the storm itself, and I know that this is kind of a wild idea, at least it was for me for a long time, to consider the weather as a neighbor, as opposed to the weather being sort of something that was defining maybe certain aspects of your day, like, oh, it's raining, I have to wear a coat, or oh, it's sunny, we can plan an activity outside. So the weather certainly would influence your day, but I didn't really think about the elements as being something that you could be in a reciprocal relationship with. Certainly not a reciprocal relationship, or even to like think about them as a neighbor. That was a very foreign concept to me. But partly, as I've discussed before, with wind, because wind is it's just so constant here. And it can be really, to be honest, sorry wind, it can be an obnoxious force in your life when it's just so constant and so intense, that it was almost like I had to start thinking of the wind as an embodied force in order to just deal with it. And then again, as I tried to start imagining it not entirely as a malicious force, but that there could be, just like with people that sometimes annoy us, but they also have their good qualities. I really tried to start thinking about the wind that way, mostly as a coping mechanism. But over time, I really have come to feel very differently about the wind and feel more like it is a neighbor with whom I am keeping kith. And yes, I think my chickens agree that the wind can be a difficult neighbor, but even difficult neighbors are part of sort of the fabric of life, and they are rich threads, even, I wouldn't even say in spite of the difficulties of neighboring with them, but they have, our wind neighbors are also, they have useful jobs, and they definitely are voices we should not be ignoring. And I've been thinking about this a lot in regards to storms, because again, for us, most of our storms also include high winds. And those winds can be very damaging to buildings. They can lead to loss of life. They certainly are hard on the animals, especially this time of year when we have the little babies who are much more vulnerable than the adults. So keeping kith with wind, again, can feel, or with storms, can feel really challenging, because it's one thing to, be in a neighboring relationship with your chickens who give you eggs and make cute noises, and, they poop a lot, but mostly they're pretty easy to be around. A storm, much harder. But that being said, it has been so dry here and so ridiculously warm for this time of year. It's been the mildest, warmest winter of the 16 years I've been here, and from everything, talking to people who've lived here their whole lives, this is unprecedented to have a winter this warm and dry. And of course that is, there's nice things about it, but it's also very terrifying, because that means we're going into spring without the moisture from the snow that then helps get the grass growing. And it also means when it's hot and dry, and if the wind blows, which it often does, that there's a significant danger of prairie fires. And in fact, on Thursday, down in Rapid City, which is about 2.5 hours south of us, there were red flag warnings all over in the Black Hills and in Rapid City. And sure enough, which is what they call it when there's wildfire danger. And sure enough, fires did start down by Hot Springs and down by Custer. And there was even one in Rapid City, or just right in the outskirts. So in those contexts, a winter storm is actually a very welcome neighbor, because even though it is hard on everyone, it also brings moisture, and moisture is what we need to both put out and prevent more fires from starting. And that is something I've been thinking a lot about, because we are living through really extreme times, and it feels like, again, is it more extreme than ever? I don't know. I've only been alive for 48 years, but in my 48 years, this certainly feels like it is embodying some of the most extreme events I've lived through. And it's funny how those extremes sort of, in order to maintain balance, it's almost like you have to have one extreme to the other. So to prevent the spread of wildfires, you have to have this winter storm. And that's hard on us. It's hard on us humans to have to be penduluming between two extremes. Oh, really hard. I'll just take a minute there to just let that settle. I'm not even going to explain it away. It's hard, it's destabilizing, and it's challenging to one day be worried about a wildfire and the next day be digging out from a winter storm. And it's showing no signs of slowing, because it's Sunday, and by Tuesday it's supposed to be in the 60s, and by the end of the week we are supposed to hit 80 degrees, which again is like, that's a pretty extreme. Right now I think it's like -20 is the feels like, and it's maybe 10 degrees, and it's going to go back down below zero, I think, once the sun sets. So that's pretty big. That's a pretty big range of temperatures in just a very few days. And again, it's only March, which means it's safe to assume that we will have more cold and more snow, if we're lucky. And I say if we're lucky because, again, at this point we need the moisture, and when moisture comes in the form of snow, the benefit is when it does melt, that's how the dams fill, that's how the grass gets nourished and is able to start growing, which benefits the whole ecosystem. So I guess that's what I'm pondering this week, the idea of generative destruction. And also the idea that looking for ways that we can sort of be grounded even while these really sort of epic forces are whirling and swirling around us, and figuring out how we keep sort of are able to hold something like a calm center in the midst of extremes, which is definitely challenging. Now, on that note, I am going to offer that I'm going to be holding an equinox gathering on Zoom. So that's this coming Friday. I'm going to include details in the show notes about how you can join if you'd like. And I'm also taking part in something for World Water Day that is happening on Sunday, March 22nd at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And this event, we are hoping, I'll include details about it in the show notes as well, but it's really just a chance to sort of gather together separately, just to celebrate water and to celebrate our relationship to it, and also potentially to set some intentions within your community, wherever that may be, or even just by yourself, if that's what works for you, just to continue showing up specifically for water health and for advocating for water health, I guess would be the simplest way to describe it. So again, there'll be more details in the show notes about what that might look like for you, and what we're kind of hoping that this will be something we can grow and have other similar offerings throughout the year. But this first one it has come together rather quickly because, again, March 22nd is World Water Day. So it seemed like a good one to start with, since obviously water is essential to life on planet Earth. And healthy water is really important for healthy everything else. See, my chickens keep agreeing with me. Yeah, you do, don't you? They also think water is important for, healthy water is important for healthy everything else. So yes, I would love to keep Kith with you again together apart via Zoom on Friday, and via these gatherings on Sunday. So as always, I encourage you, if you like me live in a place that's just had a blizzard, maybe going out to keep Kith today will be a little bit of a shorter affair than some other days. But yes, I invite you to go out and keep Kith, even if it is just to walk out and stand next to the tree in your yard, or pet your cat, or if you do have some human neighbors who are out shoveling their snow, you can go and say hello. And until next week, I hope you are all well, and maybe I will see some of you this coming Friday. Bye for now.